Okay, but hear me out. And I don't mean to offend anyone. But how
you're on the internet, it's too late.
It's too late.
100% of the proceeds gained from this monetized episode will be donated to sciencesaves.org. Thanks for listening.
One thing I have learned over the years, though, is initially, whenever you start online, generally people find your content, like it. Later on, eventually, you're going to have some disagreements. And at that point, it becomes absolutely essential that you can take some of the slings and arrows. And this is a growth thing. It always hurts the first time. And after it's been over a decade now, and there comes a point when it's just hard to get excited about these sorts of things. And almost the worst thing that people do these days is they or have done is I get so much junk mail. So people sign me up for this sort of spam stuff. And one of the most hilarious ones that comes in is it's from Crosswalk Presents, and it's things like Jesus past, present, and future. But they have some absolutely hilarious stuff in there. Like I'm going to have to look it up about demons, and
it's almost like free content for you, though. I think it like backfired.
I could make videos on this alone for decades. Oh,
why don't you?
Oh my god! Right. So I just did a search in junk mail. Right. You got to bear in mind the junk mail burns out after however long. 10 things you didn't know about the 10 Commandments. 10 ways to recapture your husband's heart.
Oh,
you see where we're going with this.
Okay.
8 prayers to pray throughout the day.
Throughout the day, that's a lot. That's a lot. What are some of them? Does it have like a lunch one?
Oh my god! 5 things a wife really needs to know but doesn't know how to ask for. Do you want to
like a divorce? Like a divorce. That's one of the things.
And I have to click on a link. I'm not so sure about clicking on links on these things. Yeah. But what does the Bible say about the soul? How can we maximize life's pressure?
But I really got to know how to recapture. I got to know how to recapture that. It was telling me, it was saying I got to recapture my husband's heart. I'm not married, but I got to know how to recapture that one.
Okay, let's see what we got. Okay.
Yeah, I need to know. I'm not even married yet, but I got to know, because I know that I lose his heart at some point, because that's just how that works. But
there are it's 40% of the site's traffic is bots. I want to have to pick the pictures of dolphins.
Pick the pictures of dolphins.
Okay,
this is so good. We should have just done this the whole time. Honestly, this could be its own episode.
Oh, it's going to be
just going through your spam mail.
Don't want to.
And is this something somebody signed you up for because they were mad at you, or because they thought it would be funny and you could make a video?
I absolutely didn't sign up for this. It's like, all right. I mean, it's true that emails get handed around and all that sort of thing, but
right. I didn't even think about that. People signing me up for shit.
Verify that you're human. I've got to do it again. Oh no, here we go. We're in. Okay, super. And bizarrely enough, there aren't 10 things. Well, what seriously?
What?
Oh, okay. These are the 10 things. I have to click more. 1, delight in his love.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I did lose the delight, I'm sure.
This is always universally. This is easy for the first 2 years. After this, leaving the socks on the floor becomes a deal breaker, right? Fall in love with his scent. Usually it's the other way around. If they smell good, then yeah. And the sound of his name. That one is so weird. Right? Okay. So how are you on this one, right? So virtually all the girls who I've ever talked to have said that the smell is really important. If a guy doesn't smell right, it's like everything else could be right. If the smell's wrong, it's never going to happen.
I never like, so I obviously I like a guy who smells really good. Like if he has like cologne that smells good, that's great. I never understood that other aspect, like the pheromones, he's got to smell, until I met someone who, for whatever reason, my apartment just stunk after they left. But it wasn't like a body odor. It wasn't like, oh, they need to shower more. Like you could tell that was just their natural smell. And it smelled so bad after they left that I had to do like air freshener. Like I cleaned all the surfaces.
It won't go away.
Right. And so once I met that person, I was like, okay, now it's only happened once in my entire life and I'm 31, but I never understood that whole, the smell is important until I met that person. And I still to this day cannot place if it was dietary, it wasn't hygiene. It wasn't like this person doesn't shower enough. I just couldn't figure it out. I could not figure it out. But if I were to meet somebody else like that, no matter how charming, no matter how nice, no matter how attractive, I could not live with that smell permeating the house.
So the nearest for me, it's never been terribly important, but I do remember that when I was a kid, having, we're talking like 5 or whatever, having your mum's jacket or her sweater or something. Yeah, it was immensely comforting
yes, absolutely.
And I think there are I don't know. Anyway, so fall in love with this scent. I mean, I think it goes the other way around. If he smells good, then you can fall in love with him.
Yeah, like a good smell is a good smell. That's just and there are smells that can be like forgiven. Like if they wear a bad cologne, they can just change cologne and it's like you're good,
You're gonna love this. How do you say your husband's name? In an exasperated tone, in a demanding tone, or in an admiring tone? Showing him that you are dear to him. Now, falling over again with the scent of his skin, sound of his name. Every man wants to be admired. Jesus, that sounds so needy.
Okay, but hear me out. And I don't mean to offend anyone. But how
you're on the internet, it's too late.
It's too late. How can you lovingly say the name Sebastian or Garfunkel or like
Sebastian's not a bad name.
Well, see, but here's the thing. You're European, so it sounds good when you say it. When you say like Sebastian, but if I were to say it, it's American. It's Sebastian. Like, oh, right?
No,
and I'm from the South. I'm from the South. So if I'm mad, it sounds like Sebastian, right? Which is worse. So it's not the name, but like, how can because you can say anything, like you can say anything and it comes out like musically to American ears, especially with like, I remember when I would watch your Anita Sarkeesian videos and you would say Anita Sarkeesian. It would be so like musical. But I can't look at a guy and romantically say Robert. I'm an American. It just sounds like.
I would agree. But although it's also true that I think you can divide human communication up into roughly 3 equal components. The first one being just the words. And this is why when people just type in words on the internet, they're so easily misunderstood, because you need the inflection, how the words are actually said. This conveys a lot of the information. This is why you need emojis online, and then thirdly is the body language.
True.
And you can So if you just
Sebastian.
have the word, exactly, there you go,
Robert.
Coming back to the guy thing, if you just say the words, I'm going to kill you, these can either be a real death threat or they can be sarcasm. And it's impossible to tell the two without something else.
Right. So there was a while where I dated a guy named Alfredo, which in its sense is a very musical name. Yeah. But he insisted on going by Freddie. He would not go by Alfred. He would not go by Al.
Hang on. Did he like have big knives on his fingers?
No, he didn't. Okay. But like that is not a name that I can picture being like Freddie. you
Yeah.
know, especially when it's a
Um,
choice, when they don't have to go by that and they just want to. Or like what's another one? Like Mikey. Like if a guy wants to go by Mikey, like how do
yeah.
you
Mikey sounds too
right.
much like Nike.
Right? Just do it.
Another pair of trainers. Okay, ask about the details of his day. A young bride said, "Tell me you whom I love, where you graze your flock, and the rest." What the fuck? So some biblical shit. Yeah, okay. Anyway, ask your husband about the details of his day.
Where were you? Who were you with? What were you doing? Were you there? Really?
Yeah.
Are you sure? He'd love it. He'd love it.
So I mean, this is the thing. Early relationships need no work whatsoever. It's just like everything is. Later on, it becomes. Yeah, you've got to work on these things, right? Okay, return his compliments. In the Song of Solomon, Solomon clearly said he adored his bride and heaped compliments on her, then told her to do the dishes and to shut up and make me a sandwich. Okay, but instead of that, say thank you or denial of the husband's. She returned the compliment, so basically reciprocation, which is like. Reciprocation is, if you have to think about reciprocation, it's probably not going so well.
It's probably not genuine.
Exactly.
Like, yeah,
right?
like
It's faked. It's
one thing to be like, I had a wonderful time tonight. I had a wonderful time. But if he's like, I'm trying to think of like a very female specific. If he's like, nice rack, like, do I say that back? Like,
your ass isn't as fat as it was the other day either.
Yeah. What if he said like, I like your hourglass figure? Do you say I like your not hourglass? I like your analog clock figure.
So, it's generally true that all people like compliments, and I think my experience is that it's basically a necessity to if something doesn't cost you much and can really stroke a girl's ego the right way, to just give her the confirmation, if she's
and
feeling
it's genuine. Yeah, it's not like it's not fake.
I've even known girls who is like, nah, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's even better. I mean, obviously, if it's genuine, that's good. But if it can't be genuine, at least if it looks genuine, that's almost good enough. Because it shows that you're willing to make this, you're willing to do things for her. It's
right.
What I was saying about the channels of communication. It's a body language thing that is saying something that, yeah, I know you like this, so I'm going to do this.
Right. Even if it's not like the most, like, I'm doing this because I know they like it. I don't really care about this that much, but I know they like it. It's their love language. I'm going to do that. Yeah, that makes sense.
So this is going back a long ways now, to one of my first girlfriends. And she really wanted me to say that I loved her. And it was like, I was young, didn't really know what the fuck I was doing anyway. But for me, it was, no, that's just stupid. And which it's like,
but I don't.
Exactly. And these would be the pearls of wisdom I would give to my younger self. Is, yeah, she's a nice girl. It costs you nothing to do this. It means a lot to her. Yeah, right, I mean, and all right, it doesn't do anything for me, but that's not really the point. It's that you're willing to,
and it doesn't harm you
to make it. This is not a big sacrifice. It really isn't. Right. Anyway, what else we got? Tell me. Focus on his uniqueness.
I love your giant nose. I love your far apart eyeballs on the sides of your head.
I like the disfiguring scar.
Yeah.
Okay, focus Solomon's bride, like an apple tree among the trees in the forest, is my beloved among the young men.
Wait, what?
Like an apple tree among the trees of the forest is my beloved among the young men.
Is that like what I'm supposed to say to him? Or is that like a...
It's apparently from something Solomon's bride says. Do you see your husband as 10 feet tall, even though he's not? Okay,
No.
we're getting into either
we're getting into catfish territory.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like, sir, you said you were 6'3" before we met up, and he's like, listen, Solomon's bride saw him as 10 feet tall, so I'm going to need you to see me as 6'3". Thank you.
I identify as 10 foot tall, though.
yeah, exactly. Listen, this is 2022. I identify as 10 feet tall, and I need you to respect that.
Okay, number 6, I would. Number 6, I think, is important. Let him know you feel safe in his arms. Well, it would be. I think that's probably one of the most important things of a relationship is you actually are comfortable together, and so feeling safe in his arms is important. But having to tell him that,
right? I was going to say,
if
as
you
a
do
guy,
feel that, I mean, it's a guy that's never been important to me. You know. From the body language alone, right? It's entirely a tactile thing. Your eyes are almost never open. This is all about, sort of pressures. You can tell instantly if someone is comfortable.
Right. And like, as a guy, like that, with that, for example, that ex-girlfriend you were talking about, if she had looked in your face and been like, I feel safe in your arms, like, what would you have said back? You'd have been like, all right.
I mean, it's one of those things that, usually, if someone has to tell you, might be a sign. If they're telling you because you can't tell, this is bad, right?
Yeah.
I've also had, well, if a girl does say it when she's genuinely comfortable, it's like, she's the little curl up kitten, I feel safe here. Then this is really cute. This is actually really cute. But yeah, if you have to tell someone because they can't tell, no.
Or if you're the guy going, do you feel safe in my arms? And she's going,
no.
Yeah.
This is the dangerous fishing for compliments. It's like sometimes it's just best not to ask. But
if she keeps coming over, just don't ask. It's going well. Just don't mess it up.
Oh my God, the word sexual appears in this one. There is a comfort expressed here in the sexual relationship, which is huge to a man, apparently. A man feels like a man when he knows his wife enjoys him physically and sexually and feels protected by his strength. Feels protected by his strength and love for her. So, I mean, the last bit, I would probably agree with that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I like that. I like that because there's...
Yeah, go. You're the woman in this relationship, so this relationship,
Right. Well, I think the key term there is like she's enjoying it. I think that's the key term because I do know there's a lot of people out there who are like, I'm manly, and the more I like get laid, the manlier I am. But the important factor there is like also she's having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, if you got to fake it,
you got to ask.
Yeah, or then
if the guy's got to be like, you're having a good time, right? And she's like, yes, and I feel so safe in your arms.
Yeah, not a good sign. In fact, have you ever come across any of these? What are these pickup artists sort of things?
Yes, and I never like their advice.
Well, I mean, their advice is basically hit on anything that moves, and you can sort of see why eventually you will just randomly come across a girl who is like, whatever, they do exist. It does happen, but essentially you're just sort of rolling the dice until there's what they come across for advice is utter gut. It's basically just play the numbers game, and the downside, of course, is that means that you're going to piss off an awful lot of people.
Right. Right.
A small ability to read the human body language you know, you
Yes.
can tell almost instantly if uh, yeah, you're wasting everyone's time here.
Well, and I feel like that is part of the problem with apps. Have you ever used a dating app? Are you married? I don't know what your
Yeah,
situation is.
I'm single. I've used Tinder a few years back, and then it wasn't too bad. Now it's become hugely commercial
Right.
and almost useless. You know, it's basically like all the other social apps. It's about keeping you on the site for as long as possible,
Right. Right. Exactly.
and the number of times you actually hit up with anything is or get hit. Right. I can also tell you, right, because I have a candid relationship with lots of people I work with, and some of them are girls,
Right.
and some of them have also used the dating apps.
Yeah.
And yeah, going back a few years, the girl who I'm thinking of, she actually met her husband on this, so it can work.
Occasionally, yeah, I've known that to happen.
But watching the different behavior of men and women using Tinder it tells you everything. It's so
Yes.
when she would do it, she would read the bios, and it's like, you know, so think about it, and yes, no, there was a real thought process, and 1 in 4 would be a hit.
Right.
As a guy, not like this at all.
No.
So, I mean, it's like a massively it's a sausage fest, basically.
Right.
So
yes.
And for guys, it's like dum 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 dum. And in the rare event that something pops up, it's like, then you maybe read the bio.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, exactly. Well, and part of that is what you were saying, how like these pickup artists, it's what they should instead focus on is like body language, reciprocation. When you're on an app, you can't even get any of that. So from the female perspective, you get so many of these messages where your first question is, does this work? Does this work on anyone? You know, you were talking about how they have to cast out 100,000 times before they find that one that's willing to bite. With apps, it's the same way. You're like, I've literally responded to people in the past. I haven't used apps in years, but I've responded to people in the past and been like, has that ever worked? Question mark.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, legitimately, I'm not matching with you to actually get to know you. I'm just curious if that's ever worked.
So I know I've known girls. It's basically like if they're in the mood, it doesn't matter. It's like
Right.
if they're there, they're available. Fine. That's
Yeah.
It
depends on what you're looking for sure.
This is rare, though.
Yeah. Have you ever been out on a bad date? Have you ever been out on like just a terrible date?
So actually, the one that I kind of did several times was speed dating. That was kind of fun.
Really?
Oh no, I would actually recommend speed dating for 2 reasons. First of all, you meet people from a huge cross section of society. So usually, I live in this little academic bubble thing. All of a sudden, you're meeting people from absolutely every goddamn walk of life.
Right.
The other thing is it's quite nice because it's only a few minutes, and that's the nearest I've got to a bad date, which is like it also is good for practicing social skills. Can you talk to someone for 3 minutes randomly? And yes, but sometimes it's hard work, and if it's hard work for 3 minutes, yeah,
it's
forget about it for the rest. Yeah. But yeah, I've also come away from speed dating on occasions thinking, thank God I'm single.
Yeah, I imagine it's hard to connect in 3 minutes.
Actually, no, you do the body language, the vibes, the chemistry. This comes across fairly quickly, and just how comfortable you are with each other, and if you just connect on, it sounds stupid, but you know, if there's just one random thing that you both connect on, this is maybe interesting, maybe something to follow up on. But I also, like I was saying, you meet people from all walks of life. So the speed dating I went to, you got superhero names. So the guy's got guy superhero names, the girl's got girl superhero names. So it's all sort of anonymous. You only get the matches at the end of the evening.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And so I remember I was Hulk, and she had no idea who Hulk was. Yeah, this is exactly my expression. It's like, how do you get to like late middle age, and you know, I mean, it's just that different of a culture that for them this was. Yeah, no, I'm serious.
Where did she grow up?
Czech Republic somewhere, but
Wow.
yeah, now this is exactly where I'm at, and when there's that sort of chasm in the culture, it's like I can't communicate with you.
Your first 3 minutes are just explaining who the Hulk is. That's it.
Yeah, and
that's. I mean, I'm a little biased because my dad was a cartoonist, so I've grown up with like comics my whole life. Like my dog is named Godzilla. Like my dad drew this picture behind me, so maybe I live in a world where like comics were a much bigger deal to my family and my existence than to most people. But you know who the Hulk is. You like everybody knows who the Hulk is, even if they don't know the story. They know.
Okay, let me ask you: does everyone know who Darth Vader is?
Surely, even if they don't know the story, everybody's got to know. Luke, I am your father.
We actually have a girl in the lab from Vietnam, and she's a PhD student. Doesn't know who Darth Vader is. Doesn't know what aliens are. Doesn't know what Predator is. And yeah. How can you live?
Right. Now, I
stupid,
totally understand not being part of the universe or being a fan. Like, I know what Star Trek is. Not a huge fan. I don't hate it. I'm just not a fan.
No, it exists.
Right. I know it exists. I can recognize at least some of the major players if I see photos of them, you know.
Picard, Kirk, Spock.
Right. But like not knowing who Darth Vader is.
Yeah. And she's not faking it. I mean,
no.
At first it was like, no, she didn't know who Darth Vader is. You're joking, right? It's like, no, I've got no idea.
How did that come? Like, how do you even find that out about somebody? Did you make like a joke about it? And she didn't know?
Yeah. We have one guy in the lab who is a hardcore Star Wars fan. He's absolutely into everything. And he's got one of the best T-shirts. It's like Iron Maiden, apart from it's the Mandalorian, and it's Iron Mando.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah. So he's a hardcore Star Wars fan. I don't know. We were just talking about it one of these days. You know, did she know who this black evil guy was? And it's like, no.
Weird. And it's even stranger to me that somebody so heavily involved in like science wouldn't know. You know, it's one thing if you grew up, you know, maybe you grew up in like suburban Illinois, you were this, you were that. Like even then you would know who it was, but you're not a fan, you don't know the reference, you don't get it.
A farmer from Kansas, you expect to
even a farmer from Kansas can say, Luke, I am your father. Like they get it.
Boom.
Like,
that's where it was filmed.
Wait, really?
No. You know what I mean? Tatooine is basically the big empty wastelands where
I was gonna be like,
dirt farming. Yeah.
But like, I guess there are some cultural references that I guess I just assumed transcend language, generation, technology. I don't know. That's gonna disturb me for the rest of the day.
These things have blindsided me, but yeah, for things like that, it's actually interesting to go on a blind on the speed dating.
Right. Who's like the weirdest person you ever met on like a speed date or a date in general, where you're just like, how odd?
Okay,
was
so
that
one of the
her?
girls, she was nice. You'll laugh at this one. She was a professional at a printer company.
Okay.
Right. So, you know, sort of executive, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It turns out she's a Catholic. And she's undergone no, that's the beginning. That's not
no.
It turns out she's had an exorcism. Seriously. And
like done on her?
Yeah.
Why? What happened? Like, why did she need one?
I didn't follow up on many of the details, but she believed in it, and it's like this is going to be tricky. I mean, I'm flexible on all sorts of stuff. I'm an open-minded guy, but exorcisms.
And did she feel like it had helped her? detail? Or did she go into detail, or was she was just like,
No,
"Hi, I'm Stacy," and
I think this was something that changed her life and made things better, and I can't remember. She might have been from Peru or something. But
oh, you know, Peruvians and their exorcisms. That's like a whole other.
yeah,
I'm just
but Catholic. That was yeah, Catholic exorcism.
She was a Catholic. Oh no, no.
I'm just looking for my shaker. The power of Christ compels you. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you one more.
Okay.
Number 7. Catch what is causing conflict and rid the house of it.
That's wild. Yeah, because like that instruction, I get where they're going, but it's too vague, right? Like, what if your problem is the marriage? Do you just throw the whole
Yep.
thing out? What if the problem is the man or the woman? Do you just throw the whole thing out?
It's also got a metaphor I've not really heard of. Catch us the foxes, the foxes that spoil vines, for our vines have tender grapes. That's a quote from the Bible, apparently.
The foxes that spoil. Do foxes eat grapes? Because I've been told I can't feed my dog grapes because it's poisonous.
I've got no idea. Why should foxes spoil the vines? Is a reference to small pests or intruders that were a common problem in a vineyards keeper. And it's like, really?
But
Every marriage has little foxes.
they were destructive. Small foxes were often too little to reach the grapes growing from the top of the vine. So they would chew at the base of the vine until they chewed the vine in two. This would cause the vine to fall over or make it easier for the fox to pull it to the ground. But
Okay.
But grapes were, let's see.
I don't see foxes as vegetarian.
Well, are foxes closer related to cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Because like I was told very explicitly by the vet that my dog could die if they ate grapes.
Really?
Yeah, it's been a huge thing. Yeah.
I know that they're meant to have a chocolate's kind of like speed to them.
Yeah.
And I was told that if they eat chocolate, they can die as well. Until one day, with this little dog about this sort of size, Patterdale Terrier, huge chest, made a lot of noise. Fantastic dog, but also loved its chocolate. Whether it was, and
it
so
makes me
one
wonder
day,
if there wasn't a lot of chocolate in that chocolate they were eating, like Hershey's, how there's like no real chocolate in it.
It might be like that, but one day I came back and there was like a 200-gram bar. I'm not quite sure. It's a fifth of a kilo, which is a quarter of a pound, I think. Anyway, dog ate all of it. All I found was the remnants of the wrapper, and the dog was breathing like crazy, heartbeat.
Yeah.
But you do the calculations, and a dog eating 200 grams of chocolate is like me eating like 3 kilos or something. It's like, yeah, this would make anyone sick. And yeah, later the dog threw up, but it was fine. So
we had a dog when I was a kid whose stomach was so sensitive, you couldn't feed him any human food. You couldn't feed him anything but this specific like medicated dog food because he was just allergic to everything. And one day he got one of those big giant Hershey Kisses that come out around Valentine's Day, and he ate the whole thing and he was fine. Like this dog would eat pasta and throw up all over the house. And he ate one of those whole things. And then I knew another dog who ate poisoned chocolate that the neighbor had thrown over the fence. But because he was such a dumb dog, he then ate a bag of charcoal and saved his own life. He essentially pumped his own body full of charcoal and saved his own life. But I'm reading here, it says, grapes and raisins can be toxic to foxes and dogs, so it's best to keep the grapes away from them. Science is yet to identify what it is in the fruit that causes the problem, but in some animals, it can lead to kidney failure. So maybe, maybe the foxes were getting in, eating all these grapes, and then dying. Like, it doesn't say they don't die. It just says they eat them and destroy them.
The bride recognizes the need to catch them right away, so they're not allowed to live with them and continue to wreak havoc in the vineyard. She also recognizes
Step 1, marry a man who owns a vineyard. Step 2, get rid of foxes. Step 1.
This is not about. If I'm a girl, I could live by this one.
That's pretty good advice.
Guy with a vineyard, it's like, hey,
it's like, listen, he has all these horrible things wrong with him, red flags, but he owns a vineyard. And my parents are like, okay, he's good. Doesn't matter the rest.
Now, the human brain's quite interesting because, right, I have to be able to predict how people like you were thinking but I've only got one brain, and
Right.
my brain mostly knows what I'm going to be thinking. So the way that evolution has probably come up with for working, predicting what other people would do, is the sort of egotistical extrapolation, which is I ask myself, what would I do if I were them? And
Yes.
but the problem with this, of course, is you are the baseline. And
Yes.
baselines are not very good for predicting the behavior of people who are crazy.
Right. And if you are the crazy one, your baseline is going to be a lot different than how sane people would react to you.
Yes. And I remember, so I was listening to one of these interviews with Fundie, Ted Bundy. It's this guy who like killed, raped loads of women.
And was apparently very hot.
And to the people he didn't kill, he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
Which is, humans are weird like this as well. But
he owned a vineyard. He was fine.
Actually, no vineyard. That was his downfall.
Yeah.
But some of the people who were interviewing him, they were saying they were trying to understand his logic for doing all of this. And it's a completely falsely premise that you're assuming that that's how normal brains work is how their brains work. You can't understand these people. And there was another bit to that, which I've forgotten. Okay.
Oh, we were talking about like the baseline for what seems like sane and trying to predict other people's reactions and responses to what it is you're doing, or you'll say, or they'll say.
That's the,
Like
I think the core of it is, you assume you're the baseline,
right,
and you make perturbations from that.
Right. But when your baseline is so far off the norm.
It's also probably, this is the origin for God. When people are saying, I've heard God talk to me, it's this exact mechanism that you're running. There's what I will do, and then I can ask myself, well, what would someone else do? And so I can ask myself, what would God do? And I get answers. And if I get answers, then he must be real, right?
Yes. Yeah. Have you ever read Why We Believe in Gods by Dr. Andy Thompson?
No, but I might actually have a copy.
Well, and he also did an episode with me. He literally talks about how the human brain developed. The reason it's so easy for human beings to believe in God is because we developed that mechanism to be able to predict what people who are not in our presence, the people that we know, like our moms or dads or cousins, whatever, predict what they would say and what they would think, and be able to accurately say, if I tell them what I've done, this is how they'll respond. Or if I give them an idea, this is how they'll respond. And it's that mechanism, like you said, that makes it so easy for us to be like, God would want me to do this. God would want me to say that, because we're so used to already
you've created the character.
Exactly. To already predict what other people would say and do. It makes perfect sense to us to be able to predict what somebody that's not in front of us, who we don't see, would think or want.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're not aware that if the mechanism exists, then you can ask yourself, what would Gandalf do? What would Harry Potter do? And if you get an answer, well, they must clearly be real, because they've talked telepathically to you.
Right. Harry Potter would never stand for this. Never. I feel like I've been getting a lot of that as J.K. Rowling has been just like spouting stuff on the internet that's been putting everybody up in arms.
So I know an awful lot about Tolkien. I know nothing about Harry Potter. I've seen like one of the movies once, and I know almost nothing about J.K. Rowling, other than some stuff happened that was controversial, but I've got no idea. So give me the quick up to speed thing. What does J.K. Rowling do?
She is an open transphobe, and she's been tweeting a lot of stuff that is very openly transphobic. And and when confronted about it, she's basically kind of doubled down. Either I can't tell if it's just messing with people, just like, oh, I'm just going to say this because it'll set people off and it'll make headlines, or if she actually believes it. I'm not sure. But basically a lot of people have been saying things like, Harry would never have stood for this, like the characters would never have stood for this. And it just reminded me of what you were talking about, where it's like these people that don't exist, but we know them so well because we're fans. They would have never stood for what the creator is saying.
So this is another general thing about people. I don't think I've ever actually met a trans person in real life. So I can't be afraid of something that I've never seen. I mean, it's
Right.
no, not really. But it's also if you take a look at what people are afraid of,
Mm-hmm.
the easiest thing to be afraid of is something that isn't really visible. And getting people to agree on anything is like herding cats. It's virtually impossible.
Do you think also it has to do with like the reason that there's transphobes, the reason that there's people who are against Jews, the reason is because, like you said, it could be anyone. You can't look always and tell that somebody is Jewish or somebody is trans. And so there's this fear of, one, people always, I feel like, fear something they don't know or they don't understand, and they don't bother to get to know or understand. Or two, any of these men could actually be women and they're hiding in plain sight, and that's what's freaking people out when there's nothing to be afraid of at all, because they're just
I think
beings.
it's even more detached than that. It's things that you just can't see worry people. And I can give you an example of that from, I'm in the Czech Republic at the moment, which is probably the whitest place that I've ever lived. That, there's just no ethnic minorities here at all. You go to Germany, maybe 10% Turkish. You go to France, lots of Algerians. You go to England, it's all sorts. Right?
Oh, you're still in the Czech Republic?
Yeah.
That's why I got the time wrong.
I thought you were
back
UK.
in, yeah, I thought you were back in the UK. That makes perfect sense. Okay.
So yeah, but the bizarre thing is that the politics in the Czech Republic is far more worried about immigration of people. Back in the day, it was from Syria. But the thing was that number one, they didn't want to come here, and number two, there weren't any. I mean, it literally is. You can go through the black people you see in a day. You can count on the fingers of one hand.
Yeah.
That being said, I did actually work with a black gay guy who was native-born Czech. That's the smallest demographic in the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
But the thing was that he had to go over the border with Germany several times, and occasionally they do these random screenings for passports, and he was always randomly screened. But the thing was that he spoke completely fluent Czech, right? So
randomly screened.
But it was a complete brain scramble for the police, because it's like they weren't expecting this.
He's like he's an anomaly. He's their unicorn.
This is almost where we're at with this. But yeah, no. The bizarre thing was the fear of the immigrants was a big driver in the elections here, and there aren't any immigrants. The nearest they have to immigrants here, this is going back before the war, but the immigrants that everyone used to complain about before the war were the Ukrainians, right? So everyone immigrated one country over. So the Russians went to Ukraine, the Ukrainians went to Slovakia and Czechia and Poland, all that sort of thing. And they would always complain they didn't know the language, blah, blah, blah. But culture, they, as a minority, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart. They're homogeneous. But yeah, no, they were really worried about immigration. There isn't any immigration.
I think it's an inherent human trait to fear a kind of other human or to hate a kind of other human. And even if you totally resolve the issue that they claim is the big one right now, they will find another one, right? So like in America, it was Mexicans are coming over the border. And they're like, okay, we'll put an immigration ban. And first they were like, well, we didn't want the Europeans to stop coming. We just wanted the Mexicans. So like you put an immigration ban. It's like, okay, great. Immigrants aren't allowed to come over for like another couple of years. And then it's like, oh, but the gays are a huge problem. It's like, but you live in an area in the middle of nowhere where there's no gays. Well, the trans people are trying to use our bathrooms so they can attack us. And it's like, well, here's statistics that say actually straight people are more likely to sexually attack you than trans people. Well, there's always going to be something. Next, it'll be like the gingers are coming for everybody, and they're just
no, the gingers, they're a real problem.
We're a problem with us with our fake eyebrows. I can just wash these off, and then I'm like a dementor. I just come out.
Exactly. It's fake. It's fake. I can tell you've got a soul. This is not real ginger.
It's
not
an
real
illusion.
ginger. Hang on, I've got to point properly.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm being judgmental. This is my judgmental finger.
Right. That's judgmental. Right. Yeah, I just wash off my eyebrows, and then I'm just eating souls. I'm just like, there's freckles under this makeup. I just got to hide it to fit in with the mainstream. But I know that I told you this would be an hour, and it has been like probably an hour and a half. I don't know. I don't even know how long it's been.
Yeah.
And so it's not 2 hours. I think it's actually been 2 hours. So I wanted to give you your evening where you are, mid-afternoon where I am. But I really enjoyed this conversation.
If you want, we're on 8. We can go up to 10.
Please, if you don't mind.
Let's get closure. If
you don't mind, I would love to go to 10. If you've got the time, I'll take it.
Let's go to 10. Yeah, it's Sunday evening. I've been to church already. You know,
you've been, as we would say in the South, you've been washed in the blood of the Lamb. Have you ever heard that?
So, are you in the South?
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, the Batman building? Or is that Knoxville? I can't remember.
Yeah.
The one with the 2 bunny ears. Yeah.
Yeah, I spent the last like 15 years in Chicago, and then when the pandemic hit, I left Chicago and I ended up here in Nashville.
What I do remember from my drive through Tennessee is religious billboards everywhere.
Yes.
On the side of the road.
Yep. Anti-abortion stuff, religious stuff, Trump stuff. It's so sad.
Trump stuff. I wasn't there for any of the Trump stuff. I bailed long before that. But
it's so sad because like I like to take country drives just on the weekend, and there will be these gorgeous homes, these just gorgeous old. You can tell they've been there. They've got like the historical landmark signs, and then right out front is just a big like Trump 2024 freaking like flag hanging there. And you're just like, ew, gross. But you know,
it's going to be interesting the next few years in America. I mean, the way I see it is the demographics have basically solved the problem, and there's only so many times you can sort of make it look sensible with gerrymandering and conspiracy nuts and such. Like eventually you'll get to the point where your party is unelectable.
Literally,
Republicans are getting pretty close to that. So
literally, yeah, and not to mention the younger generations that keep becoming of voting age are leaning further and further and further left. So at some point, even if you're not unelectable for social reasons, you're unelectable for population reasons. The majority of the population just will no longer be a fan of your rhetoric.
Yeah. And I mean, the whole socialism thing is such a, right? I mean, the only real difference between America and Europe is one has socialized healthcare, one doesn't.
And one literally bankrupts you if you get sick.
And it's not that America doesn't have the money, because it's spends huge amounts on the military, which is
and useless walls between us and Mexico.
Yeah, which in terms of money, that one's actually not so expensive. When you can the military budget
in
like
comparison
$1 trillion a year or something, in comparison, and America's real problem is it's kind of gridlock. That the health industry in America it's comparable size to the health. It's $1 trillion industry, and the amount of the Congress and the Senate, they're only like a few hundred people. So the amount of money a $1 trillion industry can put into lobbying a few hundred people basically gridlocks the whole system. So it change in America is well, changing any political system is tough,
but here especially,
yeah.
Or maybe it just seems especially because I'm in the middle of it, but it seems like
I was there as well. It's
I love reading foreigners' opinions on what's going on in America on Reddit when they're like, this is what it looks like from our end. It's usually pretty accurate. The craziness that they think it is, it's usually pretty accurate.
So when it's a long time ago, like 15 years ago now or something, I had appendicitis when I was in Wyoming, in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming.
Yep.
Where I had a gangrenous appendix and almost died. Didn't die. Very happy about that.
That's good. Glad
But
you're still with us.
very painful. And so I was at this hospital in Wyoming. It's a late night on Saturday night or something like that. And I'm sort of sitting there in this sort of semi-delusional haze in the waiting room. And whilst I'm there are these sort of, clearly fairly agitated, frantic parents trying to get some treatment for their kid and going through the credit cards. And now I can't pay with this one, can't pay with this one, and all I remember is this is bloody horrific. They're just trying to get some treatment for their kid, and it's like, sorry, you can't pay for it. So sucks to be you. And it was not like, I mean, if he breaks a leg, sure, they'll sort of patch him up, make sure he doesn't die or anything, but it's a harsh place to be sick, is America.
It is. So I went to college basically for free on scholarships because I was on like the debate team and I had campus jobs. But while I was in college, I had kidney failure and I lost one of my kidneys. It literally just died in my body. It was wild. And it cost me the same amount over the course of like 4 years of like paying down my medical debt after insurance. I had insurance. It cost me the same amount for my kidney and the surgeries and things that were involved that it would have cost me to go to college. Yeah.
So, I mean, I knew how much my appendicitis, my appendectomy cost. It was something like $25,000, something like that. 20.
Yeah. Mine was about 25. Yeah.
That's actually cheaper than I expected, but still.
Well, my school was also very cheap. My school was also like maybe a little less than $8,000 a semester at the time. It was I went to the cheapest school in my state that I could go to. But I'm just glad that I got those scholarships, because if I had to pay for loans to go to college and that medical debt, it would have bankrupted me before I was 21, like before I was old enough to drink.
Yeah. That's another one that's always there is. I can't give you exact numbers, but where you can join the army at 16, go and kill people for your country, but you can't buy a drink till you're 21.
Yep.
Because alcohol is immoral, and this goes all the way back to Prohibition, which was again, the Bible says. There we go. The Bible says.
Yeah. And then they try to say separation of church and state. And you're like, but our money says in God we trust. Like it literally says that on our money. I'm confused. How is that separation of church and state?
Also,
the Pledge of Allegiance has God in it.
In Illinois?
So Nashville in Tennessee.
Yeah.
If you're talking about the same thing I'm talking about, they have 2 license plates now. If you get the one that says in God we trust on it, it's either numbers or letters first, and then numbers or letters second. If you choose the license plate that does not say in God we trust, they swap the order so that when police look at your license plate without being close enough to read what the words say, they already know if you decided to opt out of the in God we trust version or not.
That's kind of fucked up. I say that because I've known people, it's like you get the wrong bumper stickers on your car and the police will give you a hard time over it.
Yep.
Not over that specifically, but you know what I mean. If you're a God-fearing Christian, then
you're not going 20 over the speed limit.
Yeah.
So I played it safe and I got a Dolly Parton license plate. Everybody loves Dolly. I haven't been pulled over once since I've had Dolly Parton on my license plate in Tennessee.
Yeah. But I mean, it's little things like that you basically have to pretend to, in certain areas in America, you have to pretend to at least have the veneer of Christianity, because otherwise there is genuine social prices to pay for it.
Yep.
And I mean, that's why for me, it was very much like these atheist conventions. It was like gay pride, but for atheists. You didn't have to pretend anymore. You didn't have to. Yeah, and you're proud. And unfortunately, they all kind of self-destructed with the feminism stuff. That it's it was a problem that never existed. I mean, you get any group of 100 people, you get them drunk, someone's going to do something inappropriate. But
Right.
the idea that this was systemic was bollocks. I mean, it was like you go to any nightclub, you would where you ply people with enough alcohol. But no, then all these rules and regulations, and it's like, yeah, I didn't get that much out of going to these things anyway, because for me, I was on university campuses, and there was never any social price for me to pay anyway. And
yeah, it doesn't really impact you.
Yeah. And after that, yeah, it just kind of all went back into the baseline, and there's never really been a sort of four horsemen moment since, which, yeah, kind of sucks.
Do you think there ever will be? Or do you think it'll be a common enough belief system that we won't need people like that talking for us?
Religion is bleeding out. And I think the most obvious reason is you take a look at what young people want to do. And when they're young, they want, PlayStations, Nintendo, Switch, whatever. And if that's the competition you're going up with studying this, it's like you're in a hiding to nothing. There is no long game here where you end up winning.
Right.
And that's basically what you see happening is, it's long been said that civilizations change at the rate old people die. People get sort of more rigid with their beliefs as they get older.
Yeah.
And so once they die, they go out, the young people, it's, they've got their own opinions about how things should go.
Right. Yeah. And that was what I was saying earlier is like, even if you hold steadfast to your beliefs your entire life, eventually you're going to die. And the young people are going to be that age now. They're going to step up and be like, no, we make the rules now when we want to change things. Like we want to vote.
Yeah. Demographic shift. And it's when you see that the average age of the Fox viewer is, what do you reckon? Give me a guess. I'm going to go for 75. I'm going to
say the boomers, I'm going to say late 50s, I'm going to say mid 50s starting.
Okay, and you're spot on. 58. Damn. Yeah.
Only because that's the age of all of my friends' parents, and they're all very much into the whole they're either, and here's the thing is a lot of my friends' parents will say they're not Trump supporters. And they'll genuinely not like Trump, but they'll still support Fox News and they'll still take in everything they're saying and they'll still believe it as fact and then be like, but Trump is a bully. So it's very interesting. So that's why I feel that way. I'm like, even the people who say they're not a Trump supporter, they watch Fox News and they secretly or not so secretly believe it as fact.
It's always one of the most bizarre things is Fox News portrays itself as a media outsider, that they're not the mainstream news. And then goes on to highlight the fact that they're the most watched news channel. It's like, you can't have both of these things.
Yeah, the liberals are trying to silence us, which is why we're one of the #1 most viewed news networks in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, playing the underdog when you're top dog.
Yeah,
but that's... The ability to people to believe mutually contradictory things, it's also a unique property of people.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's go back. Let's go back to relationships and recognize you two belong to each other. Long before the Apostle Paul instructed the Ephesians that they were married, they were one body and belonged to each other. The young bride said, "My beloved is mine and I am his." Okay, fair enough. This is all I love you type thing.
I feel like the woman would say we belong to each other, but the man would probably say she belongs to me and I'm the leader of, you know what I mean? I feel like the likelihood that she thinks they belong to each other and he maybe disagrees a little bit is pretty high in a lot of these evangelical relationships.
No, I mean, if they're talking because
that's not even biblical. That right there is not even biblical.
I've known asymmetric relationships where the girl can like being owned, as it were, and the guy likes it as well. Yeah, so
Yeah.
There's a spectrum of relationships here.
Yeah.
Yeah, for certain, someone saying you belong to me when you're not into it, this is like, this is not going to end well.
When you're into it, it's wonderful. When you're not into it, they are very close to being a serial killer in your mind. Like they're very close to being like holding you against your will and committing kidnapping.
What have we got here? How could any man not desire a woman who considers her body his own and his body hers? At least they're getting the reciprocation in there.
Right.
But,
I like the reciprocation, but I don't feel like that is in line with a lot of biblical teaching.
No, I mean, it's you chattels of marriage and all that sort of thing, you know. And it's, I forget which book it is. It's Solomon. He has like 500 wives and 1,000 concubines.
Yep.
And first of all, why? But also,
that's just a lot. That's a lot.
But it's something like concubines are like wives, apart from they don't get anything if you die. It's some legal crap like that, and it's like, really, this is where we're going for our moral leadership, you know.
And wasn't it Abraham, the father of nations, whose wife couldn't have a son, so God gave his slave to him to have kids, and then he had a kid with her, and then the wife had a kid, and she was like, I changed my mind, get them out of here. Like, even though I said that was fine with me, I changed my mind, kick him out in the desert, get rid of him, even though we did what God told us to do. Yeah.
Right. Intimate reconciliation when you realize you've grown complacent. Okay, the growing complacent thing is the battle of all long-term relationships. The battle
Wait,
with
so what does it recommend you do? You apologize for that, or what did it say?
Initiate reconciliation when you've realized you've grown complacent.
Like you as a couple or you as a person? There's a big difference there. Like, do I need to apologize for being complacent, or do I need to figure out why we are both complacent? I feel like there's a huge difference there.
Yeah, for certain, there can be a predominance of blame in these things.
Because I feel like there's a difference between, hey, dearest, I've noticed we are not connecting on the same level. Let's figure that out. And I recognize that I have been the stiff shirt in this relationship, and I am willing to fix whatever it is that you need for me to not be so boring. So please tell me what that is, and I'll do it. You remember number one was like reclaim his love or whatever, like refind his attention or something. That's how you do it. Is that last one. You apologize for being boring and making him step out and find other people. I get it now. I'm going to change how I date for the rest of my life.
This one I think is these are the intrinsic problems with all long-term relationships is
she's boring. She needs to reclaim his attention. She needs to like his name and his smell.
The thing is, you can't, these things are hard to fake, right? Okay, you can fake them short term.
I don't know, man.
For years,
I don't know. That would be hard.
Actually, no. Faking that you like someone's smell, no. Faking that you like having a hug with someone, if you've got to do it, the relationship's over. I mean, and the last one, it's got a nice picture with it. Invite him to find pleasure in you. Then my beloved come into the garden and taste the choice fruits. I think this is basically sex. Song of Solomon.
So they're saying like make the first move, basically. Like don't make him make the first move all the time. Or like be receptive. Like be into it.
The young, obviously confident bride invited her husband to find pleasure in her. Yeah, so it's basically making the first move. There's nothing more appealing to a husband than for his wife to initiate lovemaking.
There it is. There it is.
So it's
so the one above that is apologize for being boring, and the one after that is one way you can do that is.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of true, but it's also if you're the one who has to push the stone uphill for eternity, eventually you just get bored with pushing the stone uphill. So I mean, if I would absolutely agree that if you're talking about mixing things up, yeah, you're likely to get a response with initiating things that will
I would
go down well. But yeah, I mean, if you've
For how
got to sort
long?
of squeeze blood out of a stone, then yeah.
I would love to see their version of this for men, though, if it still lines up with the same advice,
Oh,
or if it's a little different, like
I
be the
can tell
leader.
you that these things are overwhelmingly pointed toward the women.
Yeah, I would love to see their advice for men, and if it's the same thing but for your wife, or if it's a little bit different, if it's skewed a little bit different.
Oh my God. Is it right? I'm looking at some of the others now. Is it wrong to go Black Friday shopping? Plus, how can I be faithful when I'm struggling?
Struggling how?
No, I think this is basically
Like wandering eye?
Well, no, they're talking now just about believing in God. Yeah. So
is it wrong
like,
to go Black Friday shopping?
Getting bored in a relationship. This is one thing. Getting bored in a relationship with an imaginary person,
like who never talks to you, never reciprocates, never reveals themselves.
Yeah.
Is it wrong to go Black Friday shopping? Why would it be? Unless they're talking about like gluttony and greed and stuff like that. Or you should be at home, like spending your time more wisely, doing chores and raising the kids or something like that.
Yeah. There's one about kids here. How to make your grandkids feel warm and welcome in your home. 10 reasons to go to church even when you don't feel like it. I can't but help feel there was a Simpsons episode on that. Oh, or 10 good reasons not to go to church.
I've got a few good reasons. I could make an article about that.
It's boring. I mean, that's what I remember from when I was a kid. It was so boring. People would try and read a story from Bronze Age goat herders and try and make it relevant for. And all right, some things are universal, like how people interact with each other. But a lot of things about beating your servants until they don't die. Sorry, beating your servants till they die. That's immoral. But yeah, if they get up after 2 days, you're doing okay.
Or if it takes them 2 days to die, then I think you're all right. I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, that's an interesting one. So if they die after 2 days, then yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, there's like a whole 48-hour rule there. Damn.
Yeah.
Just hope he doesn't make it 47 hours, because then you're gonna get a strict talking to.
Hang on. Now, yeah, I think you've hit it here. So what happens with daylight saving time?
Or if you kill him in February, does that count as 3 days?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Inquiring minds need to know. We have to start writing to Crosswalk Daily Update.
That's really
oh my
funny.
God. Billy Graham on why the Bible warns against the occult and witchcraft. 6 female celebrities who openly follow Christ. 6 ways your family can be a light this Halloween. 5 most 10 things Christian women shouldn't do.
Oh no.
I'm tempted.
I am too.
Okay, we're gonna take a quick.
Can I guess? Can I make a guess on what they are?
I might have to identify some more dolphins. That's incredible. I mean, who would? Oh my God, what does the Bible say about angels? These people are nutters.
The Bible says a lot of weird stuff about angels. I did an episode on that, and it says a lot of weird stuff that I don't remember learning in Sunday school.
Yeah, there's. So this was one of the first things I remember Dawkins saying on this is about how pseudoscience probably outsizes real science in the popular image by 10 to 1, in that you could go to his local bookstore, back when there were bookstores, so printouts of the internet, and the section on angels would be 10 times the size of the section on science. And that was just angels. This is before you get on to homeopathy and all the other crap. I've got it now.
I'm just gonna guess that some of the 10, one's gonna be something to the effect of, you should trust your husband because he's the head of the household, stop arguing with him. One is going to be something about when you're in church.
Guess what? Number one, ignore the needs of others. So you have to, okay, but that's true of everyone.
Wait,
Prioritize your, no, so these are things you shouldn't do. Prioritize your possessions over people. I know
Okay.
some people for it's like, okay, we're not doing this. My shoes are everything. It's like,
listen,
fuck
yeah,
you.
like
It's like not happening.
I own some things that are very important and I will fight to the death.
Worry and stress about the unknown. Obsess over anything other than Christ.
I just feel like if you're obsessing over Christ, that's like an emotional affair on your husband, is it not?
Actually, and not only that, it's you're having an affair with someone who your husband can never compete with.
Exactly.
He's perfect. I mean, it's in fact, shouldn't if you really did have a relationship with God, what can a human offer you?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I think a lot of people would prefer a spouse that they never have to see, never have to feed, never have to listen to, never have to change the channel to their favorite show, never have to like get a bigger apartment. You know, they can live wherever they want. They never have to worry about a pregnancy scare. Like they never, well, no, that's not true. We saw what happened to Mary. And then like, right? I don't know. I feel like if most people could, if they were given the option of having a spouse that like takes up all the space and time and food and stuff, or a spouse that you never see, never hear, they just give you a little book that tells you how things are and you just do that.
Also, it's kind of the most absentee super being of all time. It's like, if we get a divorce, do I get alimony?
Is that automatic sent to hell if you try to divorce God? If you're like, listen, I'm just sick of his shit.
If you get half of everything, well,
that's a lot.
I get half of everything for the divorce, you know?
Well, and does that make Jesus your stepson? Like, are you his stepmom?
Oh, this is, have you seen Family Guy? He had some great
I have, but I don't know that reference to it.
There were loads where, Jesus' son is saying he had a bad day. And, oh, wow, you had a bad day. They teased you at school. Well, let's take a look in this book. Wow, they were real bastards to this guy. They nailed him to a tree.
Well, and also, if it's the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, are you both married to him and your stepson?
And
are you married to God? Are you married to Jesus? Are you married to both? And who's this Holy Spirit guy, and what's he contributing to the relationship?
It's the weirdest. In fact, hang on, now I think about it. If you're both Christians, does that mean that, and God is everywhere, that every time you have sex, it's like a fivesome?
Is that like polyamory? Right.
Yeah. So you've got the Trinity in there, and you and the other guy. So,
and not to mention all the other marriages that have God in them.
That's pretty polygamous. The one I always found kind of amusing was God is watching you do everything because he's completely omnipotent, and it's like,
and he knows what you're going to do before you do it, so he knows what he's about to watch you do.
Exactly. So if God really does exist, we've got two things to talk about. First, boundary issues. Secondly, privacy.
Yeah.
Even I can unplug Alexa when I don't want it in the.
I can like cover my webcam, you know.
Exactly. See, oh wow, Christian women shouldn't gossip about others. That's not going to happen.
That's literally that's like the whole thing, though, isn't it? Isn't that like the whole brand? Isn't that what you're supposed to do? At least in the Baptist church, you're supposed to gossip about other women. Like that's just the brand. Like what else do I have to offer if I'm not allowed to go to church and gossip with the church ladies? That's the whole thing.
It was, the drama channel before they had the internet.
Like how else are you going to know what's going on if you don't gossip at church?
Real Christian women shouldn't judge non-believers for not acting like believers. That sounds about right.
Well, that's a rule that everybody's breaking. I like that rule.
This is true, but no one follows it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, are these rules, or is this just decent advice? Because if it's rules, then I'm so sorry. Nobody's.
Well, I mean, this is the other thing. If you were to ask, how much of this can you sustain from what's in the Bible? I mean, they do have biblical quotes in there, but they're so random and detached that.
Right.
So he was on things that Christian women shouldn't do. Fill up social media platforms with self.
Okay, but have you ever heard of the Christian influencer? Like,
No.
so there are entire Reddit
Yeah.
threads based on women who are nothing but Christian influencers.
Okay. No, I am aware of this. I am aware of this.
Yeah, like these Fundie social influencers who post every moment of their day, like prayers in the morning, their like afternoon tea with the Bible. Like, so are they in a sense being bad Christian women?
According to this, yes. And bizarrely enough, finding something about social media in the Bible you would have thought would be fairly challenging. But apparently, this is the bit in the Bible that they're talking about. Scripture says when we follow Christ, we become all about him. John the Baptist says, he must increase, but I must decrease. For me to decrease, my selfies must decrease too. Oh no, that's after the quote.
Oh, I was like, what?
so the actual quote is, he must increase for me, but I must decrease. And from that they get, for me to decrease, my selfies must decrease too. It's like, aha. And there's a second quote here, Galatians 2:20. I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son who loved me and gave himself for me. And from that, they get, put other people in those pictures. It's like, this is just making up random shit.
I feel like they put on some kind of like Bible verse generator and just like copied and pasted whatever it. That's not what I got out of that. I got the whole treat your body like a temple thing, but if I was going to treat it like a temple, I'd show off that temple on social media. I'd be like,
also, I'm a little confused by this. I have been crucified with Christ and I no longer live. This doesn't seem like a lesson. There doesn't seem to be any lessons you can draw there about social media. I think
they're saying, even though you're alive, you're actually Christ. Like, you're the embodiment of Christ. And so treat yourself and your image as you would if you were no longer alive, but instead you were Christ.
Okay.
Maybe I'm reading too far into it. I don't know.
Yeah. It's tricky. Yeah, so this is the thing. All the adverts on this are for girl stuff, like handbags and shoes, and in other words, these are not things that like, this isn't some sort of browser history. These are coming with the because
they're probably sponsored, maybe.
I think so. Yeah.
What 10 things Christian women should not do. Have an ugly bag. Here's some more fashionable ones. Like,
and they're all discounted by like 25%.
Christian women should not pay full price for a good purse. Here's a place where you can get them at a biblical discount. Well, with that being said, is there a message or something you would like to leave the audience with after they listen to your episode? Anything you would like to say?
Something about trust. There we go. Trust the science. I think it's Breaking Bad.
Trust the science.
Trust the chemistry. I can't remember.
Both, though. I think you should trust both. You should trust science and you should trust chemistry. Yeah, I don't think it's mutually exclusive. Well, awesome. Well, Thunderfoot, Phil, thank you so much for spending the last like 3 hours of your time with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun.
It's been wonderful talking to you, and I will give you your Saturday night back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.
Good time.